Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be doing a detailed examination of middle ear health, tinnitus, Noxacusis, Hyperacusis, and related auditory disorders. Now at the very end, I'm going to include a very useful middle ear health or middle ear inflammation protocol that you can follow. So make sure you watch the video until the very end, or you can skip over the signs if you're lazy. Now, before we begin, I'd like to thank each and every one of you who have opted to support me and my research and the channel by joining and becoming a member. And for those of you who have the membership perks as described, send me a PM on Discord and I'll give you the role as per the role assigned to you. Now let's get down to it. Now, I already made a video about inflammation and middle ear health, but I want to kind of have everything together in one video so that everybody understands how important these things are and how they shouldn't be ignored. Now, the middle ear plays a critical role in our auditory system, not just in conducting sound and dampening sound and protecting us from loud sounds like the stapedius muscle or the tensor tympani muscle, but also it provides an environment that supports proper neural signaling. Now, research suggests that inflammation or dysfunction of the middle ear can actually influence downstream process within the inner ear and beyond. And such disturbances may lead to enhanced excitability, eventually leading to altered signal processing. And of course, the conditions such as tinnitus, Hyperacusis, Noxacusis. I wouldn't necessarily say that it is a cause, as it very rarely is with these conditions. What I can say is that it definitely can be the straw that breaks the camel's back in these cases, as tinnitus, Hyperacusis, Noxacusis is a combination of various factors altogether, and any one of them can actually overtip the balance, leading to the perception of phantom noise, ergo tinnitus. Some of you are confused or new here and you don't know what I'm talking about. Definitely do watch my previous videos, like the mechanisms of Noxacusis one. But basically, maladaptive plasticity in the auditory pathway is usually considered a combination of factors such as excitotoxicity, inflammation from acoustic shock, hearing loss, for example, stress, which absolutely does have a negative effect on the nervous system, and also, especially in cases with Noxacusis or central sensitization, which we will talk a little bit later on today, some type of dysfunction in the somatosensory pathways, specifically cervical or jaw tension, sending these excitatory signals to the dorsal cochlear nucleus. This is why you sometimes see people with hearing loss and no tinnitus, for example, because there's no maladaptive plasticity due to the lack of one of these factors. And this is also why you see some people in war zones develop tinnitus, while people going to concerts do not develop tinnitus. Because, well, the difference is that being in a war zone obviously causes very significant stress, which, as we all know, is a significant contributing factor. Absolutely anything that can upset the balance and have these stars align, so to speak, in a negative way towards developing these conditions or towards failed homeostatic plasticity. Usually, the more cofactors a person has, the more chances are that his condition will be much more severe. So a lot of the time we see people with somatic tinnitus, which shows a very significant synchronization with the somatosensory pathways actually be objectively more severe than, for example, people who are not very somatic or not somatic at all. It's a vicious cycle of self-reinforcing feedback loops leading to heightened hyperactivity, which leads to more feedback loops and more neural synchronization. So disrupting these feedback loops is necessary, and Susan Shore's device is one way that these feedback loops can be disrupted, potentially leading the, resting state of the auditory pathway to be less hyperactive, so to speak. Disrupting these feedback loops depends really on the person, because some people have addressed their somatosensory cofactors like cervical and jaw tension, for example, or like I mentioned in my previous videos, like overbite and anything related to the jaw that can cause significant trigeminal irritation, for example. Other people see benefit by a very strict low inflammatory protocol, which we will be talking about later today, to disrupt these feedback loops. So a lot of different approaches can be done. Susan Shore's device is only one of them, and I would say it's the most significant one. But in any case, let's get down to the main topic of today's video. Now, one of the key processes implicated in auditory disorders, specifically middle ear disorders, actually, due to acoustic shock, for example, causing middle ear muscle inflammation. It involves the interplay between inflammation and excitotoxicity, as I've mentioned in my video and paper on Reddit. Excitotoxicity occurs when excessive activation of glutamate receptors leads to abnormal calcium influx. And as we all know, a heightened calcium influx leads to long-term potentiation, or the connections between neurons becoming stronger, oxidative stress, and just neuronal damage. And chronic or uncontrolled inflammation can actually worsen these effects, as immune-related cells, including microglia and cytokines, sensitize glutamate receptors and reduce the ability of glial cells to clear excess glutamate. So this synergy can actually create a harmful cycle where inflammation promotes excitotoxicity, and excitotoxicity damage further triggers inflammatory responses. Now, some of you don't understand what in the world I just said. Glutamate is the dominant excitatory neurotransmitter in the body. That means it's the main method in which nerve cells communicate with each other. And due to those things I mentioned previously, the nerve cells can become sensitized or have a heightened glutamate response, which means that even with less stimulation, the nerve cell will still become very excited and fire an action potential anyways. And on action potentials, I have a very good video on this. It's the Susan Shore versus linear video. It's like, 10 videos ago or something like that. So I really recommend that you guys check it out for those of you who do not know what an action potential is, and for those of you who want to find out what long-term depression and long-term potentiation are. Now, back to inflammation. Importantly, inflammation in the middle ear can disrupt the blood labyrinth barrier, which is a specialized interface that protects the inner ear. And once compromised, inflammatory mediators and immune cells may reach the cochlea and other auditory structures. This can actually increase neuronal excitability and potentially contribute to tinnitus, even in the absence of external sound, or leading to exaggerated responses to normal environmental sounds. Now, there's actually growing interest in how middle ear pathology might interact with somatosensory pathways. For example, the tensor tympani muscle, or TTM, in the middle ear, when repeatedly or abnormally activated, such as after acoustic trauma, may become inflamed. And some hypotheses suggest that these processes can activate nociceptive or pain-sensing type 2 afferents within the cochlea, leading to a prolonged burning sensation or burning pain, also known as Noxacusis. Now, the trigeminal cervical complex, or TCC, integrates inputs from the craniofacial structures, including the middle ear region, and persistent nociceptive signals from the ear or chronic inflammation in the middle ear, or actually both, might centralize within the TCC and contribute to central sensitization, a state where the nervous system becomes hypersensitive to stimuli. Now, this sensitization may then influence the dorsal cochlear nucleus and other central auditory structures, amplifying the feedback loops and potentially hyperacusis and potentially Noxacusis and all of that. In the context of tinnitus and Noxacusis, there is evidence that somatosensory inputs, such as those from the trigeminal nerve or the cervical nerves, modulate the processing within the dorsal cochlear nucleus. And if the trigeminal pathways are irritated or inflamed, you're getting a lot of aberrant signaling into the dorsal cochlear nucleus, potentially leading to the reinforcing of these feedback loops and potentially leading to long-term potentiation due to heightened calcium signaling. I've already mentioned the importance of disrupting these feedback loops as much as possible by addressing your somatosensory cofactors such as cervical or jaw tension in my previous video. However, how can you address the middle ear inflammation, or, for example, if you have a disruptive or malfunctioning blood labyrinth barrier? Well, there's a few ways that you can do this. Now, I whipped up a middle ear inflammation protocol, taking some of the information from the rescue protocol, which was put together by my community and available on my subreddit. I really recommend that everybody does take a look at the rescue protocol for noise-induced damage, because it could come in very useful. The first one is N-acetylcysteine, also known as NAC or NAC. Now, NAC is an antioxidant that can support glutathione production and may help mitigate oxidative stress. The next one is more anecdotal. It's shown to help some people, but it has no side effects, so I included it as well. The next one is Ambroxol. Now, Ambroxol is actually used as a mucolytic agent, but it also has anti-inflammatory properties as well. Another thing that can help reduce inflammation is a very strict low histamine diet. Reducing dietary histamine without relying on histamine blockers can potentially help lower the systemic inflammatory load. Now, another very important one is liquid magnesium chloride. It has to be liquid magnesium. It's absorbed better. So magnesium helps stabilize neuronal excitability and decrease inflammation. Now, the next one is omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D. Both of these have been implicated in supporting normal immune function and possibly modulating inflammation. Now, the next one should be approached with caution, as it has shown to have a negative effect on those with visual snow syndrome. The next one is an anti-inflammatory agent, I guess, which is curcumin or turmeric. Turmeric is probably the better option, as it's more, stable. And using whole turmeric rather than isolated curcumin supplements may be preferable for most. Now, this other one is pretty controversial, as a certain somebody says that it is the cure to tinnitus. It really is not. It can help with inflammation with some people. The research backing it up is also kind of but I can probably say that it does help with inflammation, and it can also promote autophagy, which is the process in which the cells kind of recycle garbage, basically. So, so fasting and potentially intermittent fasting can help with this to an extent, but it should not be considered a cure by any means. And the absolute god of otoprotective meds are compounds like NHPN 1010, which is a combination of NAC and HPN07. It is a super duper insane anti-inflammatory antioxidant, which actually prevents oxidative stress and excitotoxicity in the inner ear, and it is absolutely amazing. And unfortunately, it's not out on the market yet, and there's not really any way you can get it except ordering it from China, which I wouldn't recommend because it'll cost like 10 grand for 10 doses. But NHPN actually does have the potential to prevent tinnitus and hearing loss from even being developed in the first place, because as we know, tinnitus and hearing loss, predominantly a very, very huge trigger for it is noise exposure. And if you prevent inflammation and oxidative stress and excitotoxicity, well, you just will not develop tinnitus or hearing loss, actually, or anything, actually. So why the hell is this drug not out on the market? I don't know, but it should be. If any of you guys obviously have middle ear issues, you can definitely try my middle ear inflammation protocol, or I would actually be more, it would be better to say our middle ear inflammation protocol, because I wouldn't have been able to even organize it without the rescue protocol that was organized by significant members of our community. So you can definitely try it out, not the rescue protocol. Rescue protocol is for like when you spike or something, or when you have loud noise exposure. Middle ear inflammation protocol should be generally safe, as there's not really anything there that has serious side effects, but, you know, discretion is advised in any case. That's about it for today. See ya.